On the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, E.W. Gannett.
Well, hi there. Step on into the lodge and leave all of your notions about what's normal outside, because this is a strange place. We look at things that people ignore, and that those in control over us don't want us to see or think about or talk about. But that's what we do here, isn't it? This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. And you know, it's interesting to me that Percy, it's now become really obvious that Percy has landed in the middle of a destroyed city that's been lying there in pieces for millennia. Every image that's sent back is loaded with artifacts. In fact, so many that I'm kind of backing off, because I got to wait for the really good stuff. And there is so much other stuff to see too. Also, we have some really interesting things from Ceres. My friend, that's a protoplanet way out there in the asteroid belt. My friend Neil Spence has put together a beautiful GMAC of the Dawn orbiter, which is just now dead and in an endless orbit around Ceres, but it returns some very interesting images, and we're going to have a look at something I found there in just a moment. Anyway, we have a lot to cover, so let's just go do it. One thing is crystal clear, even if the images they're allowing us to look at aren't. You see, Percy landed where it did because they knew they were landing in the middle of a destroyed city. They claim it's an ideal location to detect signs of possible microbial life, and that's all true, but we've known about microbial life on Mars for decades, ever since Vikings' life sign detection experiments gave clear indications that something was stirring in the red planet's soil. Look around, there are blocks everywhere, cubes, rectangles, carved pieces, ornamental stone, the works. The stones are ancient and have been lying in their present positions for millennia. You can tell that by the erosion patterns lining up with the prevailing winds in Jezero Crater. Think of the stones as if they were clumps of seaweed in a stream, all the seaweed pointing downstream in the current. I'll show you a couple of things today, and you be the judge. Our cube here has markings on it, and of course the unmistakable signs of having been worked. And to the right of it, another cube, its windward side scrubbed down, but the side facing us still retaining its distinctive cube-like shape. And I like this line of spheres that seem to be glowing in the light. What's that all about? In fact, there are any number of items in this image that look suspiciously not natural. And here's another one, that distinctive Martian blue stone. Does this look natural to you? If you found this in your backyard, would you think it's just an example of miraculous erosion, or is it more likely a block of stone cut by intelligent hands? Here's another one pointed out by Bob Free. Just ignore that big old cube sitting dead center down front. We're interested in what's inside the target area way in back. This kind of reminds me of the building blocks we used as little kids, you know, the ones with letters on the sides. Those 3 blocks are so clearly worked stone that I find it difficult to believe anyone could deny it. Oh, I know someone will bend themselves into a pretzel, making up some fanciful, pseudoscientific reason why they are natural. But before we move on, look around. How many cubes, rectangles, and other shapes do you see in this image? I love how these cliffs seem to glow in the high noon sunlight. This is something Terry Burnett shared with us a few days ago. It's lodged between stones down there on the left. I'm aware that this could simply be a piece broken off the sedimentary layers that make up the cliff. I get that. But besides the super straight, clean lines, how come that edge on the right is so perfectly beveled? It's fascinating to me how stones can break like that, and I suppose that's possible in this case, except for the company this piece is keeping. Did you notice this odd little contraption down in the right-hand corner? Let's take a closer look at it. What in the world are we looking at here? It kind of reminds me of the bones inside our inner ear, but that's where even this faint resemblance ends. That bar across the top and what seems to be a parallel shape in back of the main one really seems to point this to being a possible mechanism or machine part tucked away in a crack and long forgotten. This is a great Martian landscape, isn't it? Look at that beautiful blue sky, the one we were told for years didn't exist. Even though the sun is supposed to be a lot fainter, this sure looks like a bright, sunny day to me. And this image is loaded with strangeness. We'll be coming back to it in a minute. But first, let's take a look at what's inside the target area. As far as I'm concerned, everything in this image is anomalous. That piece in the front, close to center, did you notice something odd about it? How about now, as I point out what seems to be a ring embedded in whatever this is? But what I'm really interested in is this in the background. X marks the spot, right? Those right angles, those lines, that X, just how do things like that form naturally? And what about the lower right corner of this thing, the rod sticking out towards us? It's challenging to ignore what seems pretty obvious to me. A derelict machine of some kind. Let's go back to our context view for some more strange erosion. Right next door to our first group we just looked at, and over to the left of it, is another arrangement that needs a closer look. I'll start right off by simply declaring everything in this image is an anomaly. Right in front, we have an upright slab with two legs, a set of ears, and an overall uniform shape. But looking back of it, look at the surface markings on this thing. Now that looks mechanical to me, but then you know I'm biased. Then you have this nice rectangular block over on the right. And then look at this piece slanting out of the sand. Do you see the circles and knobs? Is this piece broken off from this larger piece in the background? And doesn't this look like the bow of a boat? I'm not saying that's what it is, but now look at this piece over here on the left. Do they belong together? Look at all those knobs along the side. If I take the time to do every single weird piece of archaeology in this picture, we'll be here all day. But we can't leave until we take a look at this. A big old box sunk in the sand with a lid larger than the box itself. What's inside? Probably the answer we've all been looking for. Dawn is a retired orbiter that had been sent out in 2007 with the specific mission of studying two of the known protoplanets in the asteroid belt, and that'd be Vesta and Ceres. It ran out of hydrazine fuel in 2018 after 11 years of service, and it now orbits Ceres permanently, dead as a mackerel. But it sent back some very interesting images during its mission. And Neil Spence has, as always, done a terrific job of stitching together a beautiful GMAC of this orbital data. I wasn't able to ascertain the orbital altitude when these images were taken. It could be as low as 31 miles and as high as 240. Regardless, it's definitely a ways up there. And before we dive in to what I turned up, here's some strangeness that kind of puzzles me. How did all these meteorites strike in straight lines while the lines themselves formed a square? Now that you know where to look, I'll remove the dashed lines so you can see the shape better. Pretty strange, isn't it? Back to the main point, though. I did a search grid on this one and was somewhat surprised to find something that NASA failed to redact and that apparently no one else has noticed. Take a look. What is this arch, and why is there some kind of gigantic tube running through it? And could those possibly be buildings on either side of it? Just a note. For anyone mining the asteroid belt, the three primary needs are air, water, and food, if you're a carbon-based life form. So, an ice moon is a valuable commodity. Is this possibly an ice or water harvesting system? I can't tell you what this is for sure, except that it shouldn't be there. Over on the extreme right of this GMAC is a small section that has this interesting arrangement of oddities. Most of y'all will immediately think that item in the center is a carving, but sorry, it's just part of the local geology. As Pandora said, I'm more interested in what's inside the box. First, let's take care of the piece in the lower left corner. Is that carving? That possibility exists, of course. But given the local geology, I'm inclined to let it go, rather than make too fanciful a claim. But that thing above reminds me of a snake, even if it might be natural. Besides what seems to be a mouth, an eye, and what might be a body, this is what gets me, if this is a natural piece. Take a look at that eye. It has a slit pupil, you know, the kind that snakes and other reptiles have. And those lines behind the head, are those stylized feathers? Quetzalcoatl comes to mind, the feathered serpent of the Mayans and Aztecs, or maybe I'm just imagining things. And if this is natural, how did it form? I'm reminded of that awful ribbon candy that shows up around Christmas each year. I had a sweet tooth when I was a kid, but even so, I only ate the ribbon candy if I was desperate. And you know, maybe the fact that it looks folded is just an illusion, the way the layers have eroded. But if I was there in person, I'd sure enough go over and give it a close examination. We'll wrap things up today with another beautiful GMAC by Neil Spence, and this odd mound of rock at the base of the cliff. Now that's a derelict structure, in my opinion. Let's do an inventory, since we haven't really done that in a while. The most obvious thing about it is the nicely formed arch and the fact that whatever this is, it's apparently hollow. Squarish windows or vents run along the top of the arch, while something is heaped up into a mound just inside the entrance. As you let your eyes relax and as you move your eyes slowly from left to right, you may be able to see some of the things I'm seeing. I don't know what to call them because they're not easily classifiable. I don't know, ornaments, machines, structural components. There's just not enough detail to make a good call on the small stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, the big stuff is clearly artificial. Well, thanks for stopping by today. And, with the summer months coming on and with my increased workload here at the Renaissance Laboratory, I think I'm going to back off a bit on the weekly episodes. It takes an awful lot of work to put those together. And absent the time and the funding to devote to it, I'm just going to take it a bit easier. So there might be one every couple of weeks, once in a while, a month, once a week, well, however it falls. Anyway, if you feel moved to help support this research, you can see the links in our description below. And don't forget our live hang. We have such a good time with each other there and get to examine lots of really cool things that the other people don't get to see till much later. So until then, this is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. Be well.